housing. Now, a group called First Brick Housing have been granted £5,000 by the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, to build houses aimed specifically at LGBTQ plus people. So I'm asking, is this progress or some kind of segregation that's being funded, essentially, by Sadiq Khan, at least in part? I'm not sure how far £5,000 will go when it comes to housing, but he is funding it in one way or another. So who shall I go to on this? Ben, what do you make of this? Now, this group, First Brick Housing, says the housing project will ensure that those living in it, LGBT people, are free from oppression. So that supposes that...
They're being oppressed.
They're being oppressed, firstly, and that housing can be oppressive in one way or another to minorities in that respect. What do you say to this?
So, I mean, the first thing to identify, is, as you've done, Emily, is that it implies that they are being oppressed at the moment in the housing market in some way. That is a breach of the Equalities Act. So, in promoting this project, what Sadiq Khan is immediately saying is that he is unable to enforce the Equalities Act in London. And that is an admission of yet another Sadiq Khan mayoral failure. But the other thing, which is much more important, I suppose, because we know Sadiq Khan is a complete failure, the other thing that's much more important is that you do not create equality amongst the people by identifying a particular set of people, whether that's through their ethnic ethnicity or whether that's through their religion or sexual preferences, or in this case, sexual preferences and how they identify themselves in terms of gender. You don't make people equal by identifying them and putting them in a separate category
by their sexual identity.
By that identity. Yeah. What you're doing is actually embedding division in society, saying, look, there's a whole load of LGBTQ plus houses. That's all, you know, they're all LGBTQ plus. They're not part of the society as a whole, and we've segregated them. That is apartheid.
Yeah, do you know what my first thought, and this just shows the current culture we have at the moment, my first thought was, oh, God, if there were LGBTQ people living in one housing area, would they become a target?
Absolutely.
We've seen a swathe of homophobic attacks recently, which have been pretty horrific. We've known a few stabbings, at least, just in the last few weeks. James, do you think that LGBTQ people feel that they must live together, that they would be oppressed otherwise?
Well, I don't know, because that's not me, but we're talking about a very small number of people who could be... I think this housing thing is... there's a block of 19 flats is what they're hoping to do. I mean, do I think that there's probably people enough to fill that who might feel that way? Yeah, sure, and, you know... Fair enough, that's fine. It's not segregation, let's not be so hyperbolic about it. It's segregation if the state is saying, oh, trans people have to live over here.
But why do you think Sadiq Khan has chosen to fund this project? With £5,000?
With £5,000. I have no idea. I'm sure that they've got... that they've filled in a good grant.
I have an idea, because it fits his sort of...
They fill in a grant form for this small amount of money. It does build on some, you know, another thing that is real, that is in in the real world, which is that there's a housing association project for older LGBT people, like sort of, you know, elder housing, which I think opened a couple of years ago with some support from the Mayor of London. And I can see why people would like to do that. It's a free country. If people want to live together for whatever reason, then who am I to say, no, you can't, you know, no, you can't do that?
Well, I mean, you could argue that it's discriminating against heterosexual people, Ben.
Well, it is.
This housing association, or does it not matter? Is this just freedom of choice? And, OK, so Sadiq Khan's given it a bit of funding. Should we care about that? What does it say about our current culture? Identity politics, perhaps?
Well, it is identity politics. That's precisely what identity politics is, identifying a group of people and making a political, you know, forming a political policy around them. And BLM, for example, were promoting all-black colleges. I mean, what is that if that's not the embedding of racism in society? In other words, white people can't go to these colleges. They had a play the other day in London saying white people are encouraged not to come and watch this play. What is all this nonsense?
Well, it's the idea of safe spaces, isn't it? And we're seeing it now in housing. Yeah, presumably this is a safe place for LGBTQ people.
The presumption for the need for a safe place is that they're not safe.
Yeah.
And what we've got to break away from is the ostensible promotion of minority rights to the detriment of those minorities and the majority. What we need to drive home every day is everyone is equal, no matter what colour you are, no matter which country you came from originally, no matter where you were born, no matter what your religion is, no matter what your sexual preferences are. It doesn't matter.
Stirring.
You're all equal.
So I think trans people would be more likely to feel safe if they weren't being attacked and vilified on this channel and elsewhere.
Well, I would absolutely
on a daily basis.
No one's been vilified.
No one is being vilified.
Of course,
people have concerns about the intersection of women's sex-based rights and also transgender ideology. That is very different from vilifying transgender people.
Trans people are and you can see it in the polling. There's polling of how people actually YouGov last week, I think, how people actually their actual views on trans people.
That's because
and then how trans people themselves feel that the public feel about them, and then how the public think that the rest of the public feels about it. And you can see there's a big divide. Most people are reasonable, decent, and they're not going to, they don't have a bad view of trans people. But because of the media environment and the political environment, trans people think that people are very much anti them, and people that aren't trans think that other people that aren't trans are
I think we are currently having a public debate about the intersection of women's sex-based rights and those of trans women, and that is the debate, and it is an important one to have, and it does not mean vilification. Yes, there will be some people who vilify transgender people, of course they will, but certainly not on my show.